this live because it was a little bit of last minute, but I'm so excited to be here with Jenna Wahl. We've been talking, and I think her message is so important, which is, finding lasting love after abuse by utilizing body energetics alignment. And I think this message is so important. And I know that if you have been through an abusive relationship, you might be going to therapy, and you might be, not understanding why you can't get out of that cycle. And I think Jenna is the perfect person to talk us through the whole thing because I think it's a very important message. Hi, Jenna, how are you?
Hello. Thank you so much for the introduction. It was beautiful.
So tell us a little bit more about, how did you get here, doing this incredible work?
Yeah, absolutely. So 18 years old, I graduated high school and I started massage school. I never had the excitement to go touch people's bodies, but I didn't want to go the traditional university route.
Mhm.
And so the next thing that fell into my lap was learning about massage. This is where I really started to get into the holistic understanding of the body. And throughout my years of massage, I started picking up hypnotherapy,
Yes.
started doing energy work, and all the fun things that you start to do because you have to do 24 hours of continuing ed every 2 years. And after doing all the scientific stuff, I was like, well, all that's left is all this energy work, whatever that is.
Exactly. And it's crazy how, I've done a little bit of Reiki, how the more you do it, like I said, after 2 years doing it, how you really get connected to that energy, right?
Yeah. And it's interesting too. I thought other massage therapists were experiencing the way that I was massaging, in the sense of when I would touch people's bodies, I could sense where it was connecting to. I could feel like a blue light pointing me. Like if I were working on their neck, it would go into their elbow, up into their face. And so I would ask people, oh, is this referring here? And they're like, how did you know? And so
Yes.
then I would be able to help them release that pain. Yeah. It's really interesting. You start to get more and more intuitive the more that you work with people and work with that same stuff.
Yeah. And I think it's beautiful what you said. I think there is an openness, right, of your heart once you start doing the work that you can either just do the massage and not connect to it,
Yeah.
or you can really connect to that energy and be guided by this, like, for yourself was like looking at seeing that blue light and going, okay, I'm going there and I'm going there. And I think it takes so much courage and practice for us to get into that mindset in a world that it's so physically and materialistic orientated, right?
Oh yeah. Well, and it's
Because you
hard
want
too
you
cuz
wonder, like, am I going crazy here?
I
Like,
was just going to say it's not tangible. I'm like,
yes.
why am I feeling this and other people aren't, or they don't understand? Or some clients, um I would receive images, and then and I didn't know I was picking up an intuitive information from their tissue. So I'm very in tuned with the body, which then now allows me to utilize my own tool of body mind energetics.
Yes, beautiful. So explain to us a little bit more about the body mind energetics.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in my research of the 18 plus years that I've been massage or was massaging, now I do online coaching. And I was really thinking I couldn't help anybody in the physical body online. And then I started noticing, wait a minute, there are so many things more than just the physical body, right?
Mhm.
Going back to that Reiki energy, understanding we are a thinking body, we're an energy body, and we're a physical body.
Yeah.
So, what I work with my clients on is this body mind energetics. And that is going to be the understanding of one, allowing the woman that I'm working with to be a greater, like, part of their healing journey. Because a lot of the
Mhm.
times, especially my own journey, I constantly was seeking the answers from others.
Yes.
And that makes sense. We went to school and we were provided the answers from our teachers, from our
Mhm.
parents. And then all of a sudden at 18, I got out of the house and it's like, wait, where do I go now?
Yeah.
How do I pay bills? How do I do taxes?
Yeah.
And so even that, I was searching with therapists. Well, what's wrong with me? How can you fix me?
Oh my God, I love
I
that
was going
so
to
much.
other massage therapists and chiropractors, and I had clients that were going to surgeons and going, well, fix me, but things weren't fixing. And so what I want to do is I want to empower women that they have the tools to help themselves be healed. And it's just listening. We have really disconnected ourselves. We think we're a floating head. So we go to therapy and they just focus here. And they go, "What's going on in the mind? What are you thinking?"
Yeah.
Even though they ask, "How are you feeling?" we think about it.
Yeah.
When we really need to feel it.
Yes, that's so good in so many levels. I too have seen experiencing my own journey with, the cancer that, drinking all the green juices in the world, exercising every day, like controlling all of that physical stuff wasn't going to heal me. And that
Yeah.
I needed to go a lot deeper than that if I wanted to heal myself for good. And that's when I started to delve into the mind. But like I said, we get so disconnected and disempowered to
Yes.
heal ourselves and to do something about our health, that we just get used to going from one health practitioner to another, to the
Yeah.
pharmacy, to the doctor, and not thinking that some of the answers are actually within ourselves. And I'm not going to sit here and say that, the doctors really helped me. The doctors, I had an emergency surgery, I had 12 sessions of chemo, but the work that I did, feeling my body, connecting to my body, like you're saying, nobody can do that work for you.
Yeah.
Nobody, as you know.
Yeah, and I think that was a couple of great points that you shared here. First off, I love I again, we just connected recently and so I've been trying to check up your page and your story, so I love that. But also we get into this mode of hustle culture. Well,
Mhm.
I'm doing yoga, I'm doing the meditation, I'm drinking the green juice, but we're doing it as check, 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 like a
Yeah,
checklist, like good 9 to 5, I did it.
yeah,
And then we still are disconnected from our body. Another point that you shared is um, n- kind of looking for, how did you say it now?
the
Um,
answers to the hell,
yeah,
going here, going there.
yes, yes. And that's one of the things that I think we get stuck in is we absolutely can utilize both Western and Eastern medicine. But when I would hear, well, you have the answers from other spiritual
Yeah,
gurus, I would get so mad because I'm like, well, why would I choose this pain?
yeah,
I've been in tons of abusive relationships. I've had, exes put guns in my face and I've
yeah,
been cheated on and I've had all these things. Why would I choose that? And if I could just be happy in an instant, why wouldn't I? And I didn't realize that I was just doing surface level,
yes.
like thinking again and going logically, well, what that doesn't make sense. But I
Mhm.
was not feeling, I was just in survival mode constantly fight, flight, fawn, freeze, constant circle of narcissistic abuse, just running through those patterns.
Yeah. This is so good. And for me, I was very touched by your message because although I am happily married and I've been for 19 years and I have never been in an abusive relationship, I know that there's so many women out there that don't understand why they are in that cycle. And they are in so much pain physically, mentally, and emotionally that they don't understand how to get out of their cycle. And like you said, it makes them even more angry and frustrated and upset because they're sitting there thinking, why, like I'm doing everything right. Like, what are some of the stigmas that you have seen in your clients? We think about, women that get into the abusive relationship. They are a stereotype of women, or like they've always done that or whatever it is. Now, tell us a little bit more about some of the stigmas that we have around that.
Yeah, actually, I'll take it another step further from that. the reason why we get into those types of relationships,
Mm-hmm.
the mother wound. And that's like my big message is we as women have the mother wound, and it doesn't have to be about mother blaming. It doesn't have to mean that your mother is a monster. Actually, quite the contrary. My mother is loving and supportive. A lot of my clients have very loving and supportive mothers. But what's happening is the pains, the wounds, and the traumas that our mother experienced from her own mother have been passed down to us in the womb, in our birth story, in our childhood. And a lot of the times, our mother is unknowingly passing these traumas down. And then on top of that, her mother experienced it from her mother. So that's where we get that generational trauma.
Yes.
And so when I start working with a client, they always say, my mom is amazing. Like I have a great relationship with my mom, or I had a good childhood. I don't know why I'm not happy. Right there. That is the mother wound, because we believe that, we have to have specific things in place. We see it from our mom being super mom, but she had to, one, keep her emotions hidden. And so we learn to keep our emotions hidden. We learn by modeling, just like our children.
Definitely.
I noticed that I was dissociating on the phone next to my son. And all of a sudden I had to snap out of it. So even though I've been doing this work, I too am human. I too get into that trauma pattern again. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm shutting down. I'm dissociating. I'm doom scrolling.
Yes.
How can I stop this, clear my nervous system, get back into present moment and connect with my son? Because then I started noticing he was doing that. And that was how he was regulating his nervous system.
Yes.
I was leading him down that path. Yeah. So the first thing that we want to look at is what trauma response or mother wound type are we stuck in or experiencing often? So I created a really fun quiz. What Disney princess mother wound type are you? And that's where I typically have my clients start.
Amazing.
Because it's just fun too.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know there's so many people, like I said, but they're like, but I've never had any issues in my, they see, because I mean, you probably know the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza. He talks that 50% of the things that we remember in our life, it's a lie. It didn't even happen.
Yeah.
So, you have this idea that it was all roses, that everything was great. But in actual fact, when you open yourself to really dive into it, and you're like, well, actually, my mom put her needs, after everybody else, like she, perhaps like my dad never treated her, very well, or whatever. Like, so when you talk about this generational trauma and the wounds, does that mean that, and I think that's something that a lot of people think and believe, does that mean that your mother needed to have gone through an abusive relationship for you
No,
to
absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. Great question. We actually, there's a couple of things here. There's trauma with a big T and there's trauma with a small t. But trauma is trauma no matter what. Now, when we are with our parent, again, they don't have to be monsters in order for these wounds to be created. Our basic needs were met: food, shelter, water, and sometimes entertainment, right? Museums and fun festivals, things like that. But our emotional needs were not met. And that is where the wound is created. And to go off of Joe Dispenza, absolutely, our memory is not very good, especially when we perceive something as a child and our prefrontal cortex is not even developed fully until 25 years old. So when I, as a child, am dropped off at my grandparents' house, the only thing that I might experience is overwhelm. My nervous system is overregulated. Why am I being dropped off at this random house? Again, it's my grandparents, right? But in my mind, it's an overwhelm, overstimulation. I just see that my caregiver, my safety net, is abandoning me. So now this abandonment wound starts to play out. I see my parents maybe favoring my sister. It's not real. My parents were very loving and supportive in hindsight, but in that moment, I saw she got more. My brother got all of the attention. I'm the middle child. I need to compete for love and affection. So then what happens is I start to feel left out. not good enough, compete for love and affection, feel abandoned. And so what happened is it's played out with my girlfriends in elementary school,
Yes.
middle school, high school. It started happening in relationships,
Yes.
romantic relationships, friendships. And then at around 2012, I called in the perfect narcissistic, toxic relationship that checked off all of those boxes.
Yes.
In my mind, why would I call that in? Because it was terrible on paper. You look at it and you're like, I
Yeah.
don't want to feel left out. I don't want to have to compete for his love and affection. I don't want to feel abandoned. But then in subconscious mind
Yeah.
and my body, familiar, comfortable, easy. I knew.
I know.
And
Yeah.
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
I feel like he's cheating. And then what I would do is I'd be in survival mode trying to catch him cheating. And what happens? I would catch him cheating. And then
Wow.
what would happen? I would stay
Wow.
because it was familiar. And then
It gives me goosebumps. You know, it gives me goosebumps. Like the way that you explain is so good because, you know, like I said, in the normal world, there was no big T, right? You didn't see your mom getting,
no big
beaten
T.
up or, so we think like, okay, so that tick, like, so why would you get into a relationship like that? And
Yeah.
then when and when you talk about the history of it, like, from elementary school to then high school to then, in your early 20s, and people love talking about manifestation of good things, and nobody
Yes.
talks about manifestation into negative things, right? And, like for me, I'm quite, open about the cancer. I manifested that cancer to save me,
Yes.
so I could walk back to myself. But of course, it takes a lot of courage and responsibility for you to say that and to recognize that, right? And for you, who's, never went through the big T, manifest, it's saying it out loud, I actually manifested this.
Yeah. And it took a while.
I know.
It took a while. I was like, screw that guy. Then I realized all situations, challenges are opportunities. They all serve us in one way and limit us in another. And that's beautiful that you share. Like, yes, that was a point for you to come back to yourself. Mine too was able to allow me to come back to myself. And I think that's our purpose on this planet, is to come back to ourselves.
Yeah.
I
just
love
go
that.
through those stories, right? Like, okay, my sister got everything, my brother, whatever. It's like, no, that was a perception that I had at the time. And I kept telling myself that story and believing that story, that it's not even true, and kind of going through that, thing in your head, because, our parents did the best they can. And I know that, it lands not very well when, they have done some of the big T things. But they're just passing on the generational trauma. But I think that, on or kind of when you look at like people that have gone through the 𝗬𝗎, I feel the same. Like my brother got everything, and I had this constant feeling of, I have to fight with life. I went the opposite of you, like nobody's gonna abandon me. I don't need anyone. I've got to be by myself. So I went completely the opposite. I don't need a man, like I'm just gonna like date them all and just dump them as I go. So I went a rebel, especially coming from a culture where, you have to be a good girl and you have to hopefully marry a guy, and, and I'm like, I'm not doing any of this.
Yep.
I'm rejecting all of this. And I left Brazil. One of the biggest reasons why I left my culture was because I thought, I can't do this. This just makes me feel sick. Just the thought of it, just to comply with this. And I think that the underlying things that you're talking about are so, so powerful, because a lot of women won't recognize that because they haven't gone through the big T as per society standards.
Yes. Well, and that's a lot of the objection that I have within my content is, well, I had a great relationship with my mother. I had a good, decent childhood. And again, I reiterate to them, amazing that you had your basic needs met, but your emotional needs were not. And remember, before when we talked about we're a physical body an energy body, and a thinking body. So all three need to be included when we're healing on this journey.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just really interesting that people, if they didn't have either hospitalization, loss of loved one, maybe physical abuse, things that are considered big T trauma, they write off, oh, I made a fool out of myself at the restaurant. It's fine. Or I was bullied. Or, people made fun of, people make fun of me.
Mm-hmm.
Those are little T traumas. And then we start to gaslight ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I think this is connected to is also the mother wound. My mother didn't mean to do this to me,
No.
but I can tell that she did this or got this, received this from her mother.
Mm-hmm.
She grew up in a time where her mother believed that children should be seen, not heard.
Yes.
So when she had problems and she would share that with her mother would say, "You're fine."
Mm-hmm.
And so when I came to my mom and said, "I'm not feeling well," she'd say, "You're fine. We're going to go to school." And so over and over, having that same situation happen, what happens in a child, especially a young girl who needs that good girl syndrome, right? Or good girl
Yes.
attitude, and make sure that if I'm good, I will get love. Then we start to question our own bodies. Well, I'm feeling sick, but if my mom says I'm okay, then
Yeah.
I'm okay. I can't trust myself. Same thing when we have our menstrual cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't share that with my mom because I felt ashamed. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
something must be wrong with me. And then when I would have cramps, there are times when she would let me come home from school or stay home from school because they were so bad. But then she would even say, "Oh, you're just playing, or you're just
Yeah.
trying to get out of school." And so that's very shameful and guilty. And then we start getting those thoughts of, my body is wrong. And then that's where we start to dissociate from it.
From it. Yeah. And in my own experience, and I see that happening again a lot in clients and in people, is that, the body keeps the score. And I know you think that, we can do whatever we want and suppress it, ignore it, detach it, all of these tactics. But at some point, the body's going to say, nah, I've had enough. I can no longer disassociate. I can no longer carry this burden, carry this weight. And slowly the body starts getting sick. And the body is so incredible that it takes a long time, right? Like I presented myself to the emergency department. I had a stage 3 bowel cancer growing inside me. All my vitals were like, check, check, check. There is nothing wrong with you. Like there is absolutely nothing wrong with your bloods. Everything is going well. You look well. Like, I don't know what the matter with you is, and it wasn't until, they put me through the CT machine and all of that. So, I was a step away from having stage 4 cancer because, it already spread to my lymph nodes. And I think, I am so passionate about this because people keep pushing themselves, right? They keep pushing themselves, not only physically, but mentally as well. I'll deal with that later. Oh, I'm just being too soft. Oh, this I can't really be emotional about this. Like I said, like that whole mentality. You look a ton younger than me. Like, so you grew up, your mom said, no, you're fine. And then, they keep saying to themselves, no, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine.
And then doctors say it.
Oh yeah.
To you, they just say, you're fine. All your vitals and blood, everything looks great. Your panels look great. And lots of women hear that. And then they have there's so many things that I was told from doctors, like, oh, you're fine, you're fine. But I'm like, I literally fall asleep after I eat something.
Yeah.
Clearly, I know. And this is why I want women to start becoming a greater part of their healing journey, because they know their body. They hear it. And women tend to fight a little bit more than men in the sense of, when you got that information, you probably were like, but I feel off.
Yeah.
Because we feel that intuition where men are like, meh, my doctor said I'm fine.
Yeah.
And then they have a heart attack at 50 and you're like, but he seems so healthy. He was exercising, doing all these things. And so, we need to be able to fight more for what we can sense. And we can do that by starting to tap into our body, but then also couple it with our energy body. One of the things that you had also shared is the body starts to show signs of illness. And it's not just the internal, it starts showing up in the skeletal, which I do share a lot as well. Because when people are trying to protect their vital organs, a lot of the times they look like this.
Oh my
We're
God.
seeing children looking like this.
No.
Well, if we think about it, they're experiencing not only playing video games, watching the phone, but they're receiving in their heart space
Oh, yeah.
all of that stuff, right? All of maybe the TikTok feed and YouTube shorts, and all of a sudden they're playing video games and being told mean things from other kids or even adults, and that starts to roll their shoulders in. They're trying to protect their heart, and it's very, very hard to see. And also, that's something that we start, shifting back, but it's not just about physical body, like going to massages and chiropractic. What is that stuff that they're holding there?
Mhm. Yeah, that's so important because I think that if you teach your kids, as kids now, I talk on my book about the generational trauma because as like yourself, I realized that all of my patterns, before cancer, I was just passing them on to my children. And
Yeah,
that was a big motivator for me to change.
me
And
too.
I'm not gonna sit here to say that I'm perfect, but I had become a screaming mother. My anger was spilling out of my physical body because my physical body could no longer contain it. People who have anger issues, as they start having major problem in the digestion system, and it gets to the point that it just gets to up to here, right? You can't, and you become a screaming person, and unfortunately, your loved ones are the ones that take, all of it, which is really sad. And for me, it was like watching exactly like you're saying, like the little things that they did, and I'm thinking to myself, I can't model this behavior anymore. It doesn't matter what you say to them; they are just watching you.
Yeah.
And if you are walking like that, if you've got, it could also be the self-confidence issues, right? Like,
Yes.
and all of that, like, I'm not confident enough to walk, my head, up high and my shoulders back with my heart chakra. I really love what you said about the heart because, when you have confidence, you're confident to open your heart.
Yes.
I'll let you touch a little bit on that because I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah. Well, and you even said with confidence, it's hard for somebody who is experiencing a ton of grief and sorrow. And even if it's perception, right? Like if I'm
Mhm.
feeling like I'm being bullied as well
Yeah.
as not accepted or feeling left out, my body's going to be like this because I don't believe others will want to see me. So it's
Yeah.
almost a form of protection, like, oh, don't look at me. And
Yeah.
so if somebody were to come over and ask me to do something, I may be standoffish. And so being able to really heal and soothe what's in there, and I can't remember what you specifically said. Oh, you had it up to here.
Yeah.
These phrases that we have
Yeah.
actually come from our mind body connection. I
Yes.
had it up to here. And then what happens? We have acid reflux,
Yeah.
or, oh, she's such a pain in the neck. And then you wake up with a kink in your neck the next day. Why? It is probably from that.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
or, oh, they stabbed me in the back. And
Yes.
now we have that floating dull pain that's right in the middle of the shoulder blades. And
Yes.
that's all from stored thinking slash energy body that needs to be released, which then goes into, yes, the body keeps the score.
And I think it's beautiful what you said about, empowering the women to take ownership of their healing, right? Like, can you give us an example of a successful story of one of your clients? I love saying that because I think people really need to, we all need help, right? And I think that there is nothing for me more upsetting than seeing a woman caught up in the cycle of an abusive relationship because I don't like to say, I'm a feminist. I think the feminism these days can really be attached to like, being
Yeah.
against men, which I am not, because I'm married to a wonderful man and he's amazing. But I just feel that, there is a lot of even younger people that don't believe in love anymore, that they don't open themselves up. And if you could give us an example of, how you help one of your clients really to empower themselves to take control of that, breaking that cycle, that would be awesome.
Yes, absolutely. And I love also that you shared um, the whole thing with feminism too. It really is beautiful to have masculine and feminine. When we're too much in our masculine, we push away that masculine man. And then we start to have that's a whole nother story.
Yes.
And that is all tied to so much. And I just love that you shared that because that whole story needs to be shared as well. As far as a client, I had such a beautiful message even this morning from one of my clients. A little bit of her backstory. I won't give too much, but her mother was very abusive. This is one that probably would be in more of the trauma with a big T
Yeah.
situation. But with that, she then attracted a relationship very similar to it at a younger age and
Mhm.
did get pregnant and now has a daughter from that situation.
Mhm.
But what happens is with the abuse that she experienced with her mother, with the abuse she experienced with that partner, she had to keep pushing her needs down.
Mhm.
And what then comes is when you have a child, you get resentful that you have to provide these needs for a child because it's almost like, well, my needs weren't met. Who's going to take care of my needs? Because they've gone so long without their needs being met.
And can
So
I
we've
just
been,
touch on there?
Mhm.
Like, I think this is so important because there's a lot of new parenting out there that
Yes.
you have to do everything for your kids these days, right? And nothing, like, because there is no time. Like, if you're never saying no to them, and if everything, like all of that, like when you start giving from an empty cup because you haven't
Yes.
filled your needs, it equals resentment because you
Yes.
just can't, right? Like it just becomes I cannot give anymore to anyone, kids, husband, dogs, parents, no one, because my cup is empty.
Yeah. And we don't realize, I heard this from Brene Brown long, long time ago, that resentment is actually not part of the anger family, which is what I thought. It's part of the envy family because we're envious that they get their needs met and ours aren't. And so, what was so beautiful is that we've been working on her taking care of her needs. When you fill up your cup, it starts to overflow into the saucer, and everybody else can have from the saucer, but not your cup. And
Yeah.
so, with a little bit of resistance, she's
Yeah.
been slowly working on it. And I believe it's been maybe 3 weeks now.
Mhm.
And she messaged me saying that she went to the doctor. She had something she was um, asking about, and she got into her mind. Well, I asked enough questions.
Yeah.
I can't ask this other one, even though I really want the answer. I don't want to be a burden. He probably is busy. We start to gaslight ourselves and go, oh, well, I won't say that. Or he
Yeah.
probably thinks I'm annoying. It's a doctor. They're there to
Help.
listen and help if they can.
Yeah.
And she said, if I don't ask, then where will I get this information? So she asked, and she's like, I could sense my inner child feeling fulfilled that I spoke up. And I was like,
That's amazing.
yes. And the more that we celebrate just those tiny moments,
I love
because
that.
it doesn't have to be this big, lavish, I healed, my body, or I am now a spiritual guru. It's, I spoke up for my needs. And when we celebrate that, more of that comes in because where our mind goes, our energy flows.
Yeah.
And the more that we focus on the positives, the more abundance comes in. There's your manifestation. The more I was upset that I kept attracting toxic relationships, the more I had the same situation, different meat suit. The more that I got upset that my business wasn't working,
Mhm.
the more frustrations came in. When I started celebrating my clients and celebrating the expansions that I was having, more came. And I was
Yes.
like, oh, it gets to be easy. So that's why I always say healing doesn't take time. It only takes intention. And
Mhm.
so when I say that, thoughts can be changed in an instant. And then I share this quick exercise with my clients. I tell them, think of a pink elephant.
Mhm.
And right away, you think of a pink elephant. And I say, okay, now do not think of a purple elephant, but you still think of a purple elephant. And I go, so why do you think that is? Our brain doesn't know negatives.
Yes.
Yeah. And so
Um,
when we say, I don't want a toxic relationship, I do
yeah,
not want an abusive relationship,
that's
we
all.
get just that.
I know. I love that. And you know what you said about your client, what I think it's so powerful about that. And people will be like, oh, yeah, but that's just not doing anything. And you're like, wait a second. She's creating a new habit,
Yes.
right? Which is, it starts by changing that thought and, implementing an action in that moment when she decided that I am no longer going to put my needs last or not say because I think I'm this, that, and the other. No, I need to speak up and I am going to. And she spoke up,
Yes.
right? And that leads to speaking up in the relationship, speaking up in
Yes.
the, isn't it? And what people, I think there is, in this kind of instant gratification world that we live in, that people think like, oh, I just need to go from, being in an abusive relationship to being the most self-confident person that I
Yeah.
am. That doesn't work.
Yeah. And I love that you shared that too, because wax on, wax off, the way that we do one thing is the way that we do everything. So her speaking up about what she needed within the doctor's appointment is actually a reflection of how she spoke up in her relationship
Yeah,
2 weeks ago. She
exactly.
shared that she was feeling not confident in the relationship, and these were her needs, which we did take a lot of time to work on. What did she need first? We
Mhm.
wrote out in an exercise all the things that she would want from a really good relationship. And we had a little bit of a wobble trying to share this with her partner. And then she did share it. And she's like, wow, a weight has lifted off my shoulders.
Yes.
And then for her, a week later, to say that she spoke up at a doctor's appointment, it is snowball and it's happening. It's working.
I know, that's amazing. That is so good. I love that so much. So how can people reach out to you um,
Yeah.
to really start that process of, and just maybe talk to the audience who it is, that perfect woman that you would love to help.
Yeah. I guide high achieving women
Yeah.
to find their lasting love without years of talk therapy by really focusing on soothing their mother wound. And many people always say, oh, well, I have daddy issues. Well, our first relationship is with our mother.
Yes.
And so, literally, helping high achieving women is like my favorite thing to do, because some of the symptoms of the mother wound is paralyzing perfectionism, lack of self confidence, lack of boundaries, people pleasing, imposter syndrome, which
Mhm.
is all the stuff that I have dealt with. And now, as we said, through all of my stuff, I now get to hold that space and support women through the same things that I experienced. Ways that they can connect with me is really, I'm mainly on TikTok.
Yeah.
So it's just I am and then my name, Jenna Wahl. And actually, all of my handles are that. Or um, a lot of the times I will be holding free masterclasses, how to have a healthy relationship after abuse. And my next one will be coming up on, believe next Friday. And
Amazing.
that is in an invite is sent when you take my mother wound quiz.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so they can go into a website or the TikTok to do that.
If they go to TikTok, it will be on there.
Okay, perfect.
Otherwise, the quiz itself, it's just the bit.ly link, bit.ly
I'll add that
forward.
as well. Okay.
Perfect. And
Yeah,
then
so
it'll
that
just be
people
mother
can.
wound quiz.
Perfect. Awesome. Awesome. And I just want to touch quickly when you said about the high achieving women, which, you know, I think a lot of women who, have got to this state in their lives that they have achieved a lot of professional and,
Yes.
that success, that most people think like, oh my God, like, I really would,
You're doing great.
love that. Exactly. I think bottom line is, people should reach out to you if they are not able to find lasting love, if they're still attracting, um, abusive relationships in some way or form, putting their hand up and to say, I actually cannot figure this out by myself.
Yeah.
I know it takes a ton of courage, but I think that, you have to almost treat like a business, right? If you're so high achieving in your work and your professional life, you need to recognize when it's time to ask for help and to go, you know what? I cannot do this on my own, and I am struggling here, and I just need help.
Yes. Yeah, and that's a big one because high achievers believe they should have this already. So
Yes.
one of the reasons why I started doing what I'm doing now, even 2 to 3 years ago, is because I experienced it with friends. I'm
Mm-hmm.
37 now, and a lot of my friends, amazing in their careers
Yeah.
and no family, and all they've wanted to be was a mom. And
Yes.
it breaks my heart
No.
because that's really connected to the mother wound as well, in the sense of, for me, I didn't want to have kids because I thought I was going to mess them up. I lied to myself. I said, I'm too selfish. I want to go travel. I want to go do this. I want to go do that. But deep down, after I started realizing, it was really tied to, I don't want to mess anything up.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel the same, actually. I didn't want to have kids, and I feel the same. That's
Yeah.
so good that you said that. And I think, I'm 44, so I see the women on the other side. They're divorced and they
Yeah.
have the children, but they are very, it's, all they want is to be with somebody. And that
Yeah.
is also very sad, for me, who sees that and think, well, you can find lasting love. You can still find lasting love, and you can still heal yourself, and you can still break the cycle. There is so much you can do, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what happened to me is after that relationship, I actually did find my lasting love.
Amazing.
And it was, I did have to do a lot of work because it was like, when is the shoe going to drop? When is he gonna, is this love bombing? Is he gonna come and discard me? And it was so, so beautiful to not have that. And now it's been 6 years and we were blessed with a son, which
Oh,
I was told that I couldn't have kids from a doctor.
mhm.
And yeah, it's just been so fulfilling. And I just
Amazing.
want to be able to have other women feel fulfilled for the rest of what they have left here on earth, especially for their children, because that's the biggest one, is being able to impact that next generation.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that so much. Thank you so much, Jenna. I'm gonna
Thank
add
you.
all the details below. I think the work that you're doing, it's incredible. Keep doing this amazing and powerful work. And thank you so much for taking your time and being here.
Yes, thank you.